What was the worst scandal at your school? Someone created a Facebook hate page for our school where the admin posted offensive posts about the principal and teachers, basically hate, and he got caught after a few months of running it. The posts were actually very funny and the page was quite the talk of our school. Turned out it was the student leader of our school who created the page. Drama ensued. The police was involved too. He was then made to apologize in front of the whole school at an assembly, but he had no remorse. He was smiling the entire time and trying not to laugh.
That's quite the situation. That's some unexpected drama. It's interesting how humor can be found in something so problematic, but the lack of remorse during the apology is a bold move. Seems like this will be a story people talk about for a while. School can be wild sometimes, but this definitely adds a unique twist to it.
One of my best friends, still one of my best friends, actually, was pretty much a walking scandal. Openly gay dude in a small school in southern Appalachia. Every single day, there was some new whisper about him, something he did that just inspired people to carry on like he was some kind of witch. Apparently he was breaking into gay bars, sleeping with male teachers, partying like the sinful sodomite he is, and was dying of, like, 3 different venereal diseases. Also, was running off to join Broadway a couple of times. Which is funny, because when his dad kicked him out, my mom took him in, so the most I usually saw him do was get high, botch making pizza, and think way too hard about Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
It sounds like your friend had quite the reputation. Living in a small town can amplify those kinds of stories, especially when someone's different. It's interesting how people can jump to conclusions and create these wild narratives. But it's cool that your family took him in and offered some support. It's not every day you hear about someone balancing all that with a bit of light-hearted chaos at home.
There was basically a full-on riot my sophomore year. Basically, the senior prank was going to be that they start a water balloon fight in the middle of the main building. Principal denied it. Seniors decided to do it anyway. There I am walking to class when all of a sudden people start shouting and I see water balloons flying everywhere. Then it escalated. Started off with people throwing water bottles, but it started getting out of hand quickly. People were throwing whatever they could get their hands on, and this quickly spread through the rest of the school. Some kids even stole the security guard's golf cart and crashed it. Police were called in and stayed there the rest of the year, about 2 weeks. Also, we weren't allowed into the middle of the main building, we had to find alternate routes to get to our classes, and were not allowed to just stand around inside the building. A few seniors were suspended and were not allowed to walk at graduation, if they even did graduate. And I hear from my sister that senior pranks are still not allowed. It's been about 8 or 9 years since all this happened.
Sounds like that got pretty chaotic. A water balloon fight turned into a full-blown mess. Can't believe they crashed a security golf cart. It's wild how fast things can escalate in school. Makes sense they brought in the police and set those rules afterward. Seems like some lessons were learned, but not all fun and games anymore, if they're still under strict rules.
The ill-fated 8th grade field trip. Our 8th grade Earth Science class was supposed to go on an overnight camping trip to apply stuff we learned in class. Ended up not getting approval from the district to do the overnight, so we did a day trip to the state park instead. We were sent out on different trails to hike in groups and fill in these packets. One co-ed group ends up sitting at a picnic table instead, and one girl is teaching the other girls how to give good blowjobs and demonstrating on her boyfriend as a chaperone walks by to check on them. So much drama, and we all got interviewed one by one at school on Monday. Boyfriend got suspended for indecent exposure. Girl got talking to. TLDR, caught having park bench blowjob class.
That trip didn't go as planned. A day hike turned into a wild scene with the picnic table moment. Pretty ridiculous how things escalated, especially with the chaperone around. You'd think they would have picked a better spot. The interviews at school must have been awkward for everyone involved. The whole situation ended badly with suspensions and talks. Just goes to show, you never know what might happen on a school trip.
When I was in grade 8 to the power of 4, my class was the worst class in the school. Majority of the students were beyond disrespectful and just outright horrible. I have multiple stories from this class. 1. Teacher planned on paying his mortgage after school and meant to keep his money in the car, instead he left it in his coat. Someone shoved their grimy hands into his coat and stole his mortgage money and also took the class's field trip money at the same time. The police were called in to investigate, but the student responsible was never caught. 2. The class outright made a supply teacher cry during a lesson in front of everyone. I forget the full reason to why she was crying, but I remember everyone was so evil to her for no reason. She was incredibly kind, people just saw her as weak and took advantage. 3. Everyone was pantsing each other, so the police were called to teach everyone about sexual harassment.
Pretty wild that the teacher had his money stolen like that, and it's messed up how they treated the supply teacher. And the whole pantsing thing? Just shows how immature everyone was. It's kind of sad that it got to the point where the police had to come in. A lot going on there.
Jock went out with the smartest girl in school. Smart girl was very nice, and though not gorgeous, she was very popular and loved. Jock was kinda picked on until he started dating her and got a lot of positive attention after they were a couple. One day someone was looking up in 16+ dance club and found pics of the jock and a promiscuous girl at our school grinding and kissing. They weren't centered in the pic, more of a "Where's Waldo" thing, but it was clear it was them. They denied at first, then said those pics were from a long time ago. People called the club and it said all the pics were from that month. Their stories kinda fell apart after that. Smart girl was crying the day the pics broke out, Jock was isolated from all social groups, promiscuous girl walked in at lunch and some people chanted slut. It was intense. I felt bad for smart girl obviously because she was so nice and didn't deserve any of it, but in hindsight I feel like the other two got too harsh of a treatment. Edit, fixed some typos.
That situation got messy pretty quick. Jock and the smart girl seemed like a solid couple, but those pics changed everything. It's rough that smart girl ended up hurt, while the other two faced backlash. Social dynamics can be harsh, especially in school. It's clear people reacted strongly, but it feels like a lot for a mistake. Everyone deserves a chance to move on, though.
The girl who hid her pregnancy from friends, family, everyone. Then she delivered the baby by herself in a shed behind her house one night. She came to school the next day and left the baby in the trunk of her car, a candy apple red fully restored 60s Mustang BTW. Someone heard it crying thankfully and it was fine. When confronted, her excuse was that, "I didn't want to miss school and didn't have a babysitter." Her family still didn't know she'd had a baby when they were called by the police.
Leaving the baby in the car trunk is risky, though. It's a lot to handle for someone that age.
A student accused a teacher, who had been there for over 40 years, of sexual assault right before her entrance exam. The accusations were investigated and were completely unfounded, but the actions of the school were even worse. They kept him in the dark for 2 months after the investigation was completed and were refusing to allow him back because of their insurance. Then a campaign was launched by a bunch of alums and he finally got back to teaching, until his death a few years ago. He was a great guy too, I had him for a political theory class and he was really nice. He and his wife, aside from having children of their own, took in foster kids all the time.
It's a pretty rough situation for that teacher, especially after dedicating so many years to teaching. Being accused and then sidelined like that is unfair, especially since the accusations were unfounded. It's good to hear that he got some support from alumni, but it's sad that he passed away afterward. Sounds like he made a real difference in many lives.
A boy in my grade left school early, drove to a mall, jumped off of a parking garage, and committed suicide. Super sweet, funny, smart, and good-looking kid. It really hurt the friends he was close with as I was friends with them. I had seen him earlier that day and had him in a few of my classes. One teacher in particular told us that when things like this happen, the school confiscates all of the students' work to see if there was any indicators of suicidal thoughts. That teacher took the desk that the student sat at and put it next to his and left it there for the rest of the year. Every day I walked in that class there was always something that was off. It will be a year in February.
That's tough to hear. Remembering him like that, especially as time goes on, can be a way to process the loss. It's definitely not something easy to deal with.
At the beginning of the year there was a new senior student from Puerto Rico. Weird ASF, barely knew English, but was funny and everyone joked around with him. He hit on every single girl, would wink and blow kisses and ask them out. It was creepy but no one took him seriously and laughed it off. Including me. I was waiting to get picked up and he came up to me and said, "You have a boyfriend?" I just responded with, yeah. And walked away like my ride was there. There was another time where I had just got to math class and he happened to walk past the class, see me, and proceeds to stop and wink at me. Well, turns out he was actually an illegal with fake documents / fake name, and was actually a 24-year-old man. We all thought he was 18, maybe 19. So. Made all the flirting shit extremely creepy considering I was 15 at the time. Think he was deported after that. Edit, I'm aware that Puerto Ricans can't technically be deported, but a lot of illegals use fake Puerto Rican birth certificates to obtain a US driver's license, passport, etc. I think he was deported because they found out he wasn't actually from Puerto Rico and his birth certificate was fake. That's why he was able to lie about his age and attend high school as a 24-year-old.
That's a pretty wild situation. It's strange how people can present themselves one way and have a completely different reality. Everyone thought he was just a funny guy, but it turned out he was being deceptive in a serious way. The fact that he was flirting with someone so much younger adds a whole new layer of creepiness.
Hahaha, so many. A school secretary knowingly ate pot brownies a student made after the student told her they were loaded. The girl brought them to school to sell. The student was caught later in the day and expelled. The secretary played dumb and got away with it. My friend actually was on home instruction when her teacher, who is also friends with her family, he's like 45, tried to initiate a kiss and have sex with her. She was freaked out and he was fired like the next day. My vice principal freshman year was fired for helping cover up a sex scandal at another district school. Just to name a few.
Sounds like there's a lot happening in those schools. The secretary eating the brownies is wild, and it's surprising she got away with it. It's good he was fired quickly. The vice principal's involvement in a scandal just adds to the chaos. School staff really have to act responsibly, and clearly some don't.
Rumor about me going to shoot up the school. Apparently, I had a notebook full of different ways I would kill the teachers and students I didn't like. Cops searched my bag and found nothing. The teachers that knew me laughed at the rumor because I was one of the nicest people they knew. I knew the cop, he was my second cousin, and he laughed at his as well. Few questions go by, etc., etc. Later I found out who did it. He made the rumor because I got his GF at the time to break up with him because he was abusing her.
It's crazy how rumors can spread so fast and have such an impact. Seems like someone had a motive, too. Just goes to show how messed up things can get when people act out of jealousy or anger.
During my junior year of high school, our English teacher assigned us independent study project where you pick a subject and write a paper about it. This one kid chose skateboarding. During this time, I guess the kid was being troublesome skateboarding around this classmate girl's house, whose dad probably had enough of the neighborhood kids skating. One evening the skateboarder went too far and the dad shoots the kid, killing him. So my teacher is destroyed that the project she assigns gets a kid killed. The girl whose dad murders the kid leaves the school shortly after. The dad gets locked up for life in prison.
That's a pretty heavy situation. It's wild how one decision can lead to such serious consequences. The teacher must have felt really awful about the whole thing. Kind of makes you think twice about the choices we make and their impact.
Where do I begin? One of the band teachers from my middle school was successfully catfished by the police into meeting up with a 14-year-old girl for sex. Needless to say, he was fired. A girl from my high school and a recent, at the time, transfer to my high school got in a fight off campus. A day later, the mother of one of them came to my school and helped her daughter fight the other girl at lunch in front of 1/3 of the school. One year for a senior prank, some guys spray painted the windows in the cafeteria with pictures of anal beads, horse cocks, etc., etc. Security footage revealed one of the culprits to only have one leg. Guess how many guys in my school only had one leg? Yep. One. And my senior year, the girls' soccer coach was fired for having sexual relations of some sort with a girl on the team. I'm sure other shit went down, but the school was so big that I didn't hear about it.
This is a wild collection of school stories. The prank with the spray paint is kind of funny but also messed up. As for the coach, that's just a serious issue. Sounds like a lot happened in that school, even if you didn't catch all of it.
I'm an art teacher in AHS. A few years back, one of the other art teachers was taking cash that kids were paying us for photography supplies, thousands of dollars over a 5-year period. She was also taking our department's video and still cameras and selling them on Craigslist. I was the one who discovered this, after our supply orders were being bounced because there was no money in our account. It occurred to me one day that whoever stole our cameras might also be the one who took the money. I tried to tell our department chair, but he refused to investigate because he was married and used to bang her, and may still have been banging her. Oh, and this teacher also had attended HS at the same school and had the department chair as a teacher, so it was pretty messy. To make a long story short, I had to go to the principal to rat her out because the chair refused to do anything. The money and stuff kept getting stolen. I could not take it anymore. Bitch tried to blame it on students, she also tried to blame it on our custodians. She was not fired, she was asked to resign. Schools prefer you to resign if you're a fuck-up teacher, because if you get fired, it gets in the paper. The public never found out about this incident.
This sounds like a serious issue. It's frustrating when someone misuses their position like that, especially when it's affecting students. Going to the principal must have been a tough choice. It's kind of wild how these situations can stay under wraps, even if they involve significant wrongdoing. At least you did what you felt was right in that situation.
We had a history teacher who faked his PhD and then got fired as a result, quietly so that the school wouldn't get egg on their face. Funny story though, I remember when he was teaching us about WW2 and he turns to the class and says, even though the Germans failed to conquer Europe with this symbol, draws swastika, they managed to conquer it with this one, draws euro sign and then proceeds to wink at me. I was the only German kid in the class, guy only had an undergrad degree in history in the end.
It's surprising how some people can still manage to make a point, despite not being fully credible. Bet that class had some mixed reactions.
Actively ongoing scandal. Band director of like 4 years and friend of principal got reported by many students for inappropriate language, sex jokes, ABT students, bullying-ish comments, bragging about dating former students. Eventually someone got diddled. Forgot to mention band director was a pedophile. Principal told him to leave, didn't actually report him to the county. Flash forward 2 years to this year, band teacher is fired in Florida for diddling multiple kids. Investigation. Revealed principal wrote shining letter of recommendation for kid diddler. Teachers and community is rallying behind principal, he's truly done wonders for the school, but many are also skeptical, seeing how the dude diddled kids and the principal wrote a letter of rec. TL, DR band director diddles kids, principal writes letter of recommendation, band director goes on to diddle even more kids.
This whole situation is pretty messed up. A lot of students reported the band director, and the principal should have taken it more seriously. It's concerning that he backed the guy with a recommendation. Now you have this cycle, where the band director goes on to hurt more kids. The community might admire the principal, but there's a lot of doubt lingering around him now.
One of the phys ed teachers was fairly young, probably 24-25, and would stay after school monitoring the weight room where a group of girls would always go and flirt with him. He also coached the girls' golf team, and it was fairly small, so there were only about 8 girls on the team. Well, the season moves on and he decides to throw their banquet at his house with him and all the girls. Then story has it that one of the girls who has a BF stays while all the others leave the house. Fast FWD to prom season, he takes them all shopping to buy them dresses and gets all flirty with the one girl who stayed at his place. The girl with a BF goes over to his place one night and her BF is worried BC he can't reach her, so he contacts her parents, and her parents, oblivious to the whole situation, tells him that they're having team bonding at the coach's house. When the parents and BF get there, the coach is walking out in his boxers and she's in his house naked. He got fired and moved after that.
A young coach getting too close with his students is always risky. The whole team bonding thing seems pretty sketchy, and that reveal at the end is something else. Can't be surprised he got fired. It's a mess all around, especially for the girl involved. Guess some people just can't keep things professional.